Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, Koki Creative. My name is Elena, and today we are doing a speed build. First off, let me tell you a little bit about this build. I built it on the 50 by 50 lot in Mount Komorebi that is on the bottom right of the map. I uploaded just the shell of this house and a fully furnished version as well. It's 3 beds, 3 baths, and it costs 225,000 simoleons. So it's a little bit more on the pricey side, but I feel like you get your money's worth out of this house. Here's a list of the packs that I use, and you can also find that in the description box as well. So this house was a request I got on Instagram. They sent me a handful of screenshots to use as reference photos. Here are some right now. One of which was Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. It's pretty funny too because I made a short speed build for this on my TikTok showing that reference photo, but didn't mention Frank Lloyd Wright, and I got so many comments about it. I love that so many people recognize the house and even told me how they went there in real life, which is really cool because my in-laws went and they said it was really cool to see it in person, and it was even more beautiful and amazing to see it in real life. But it's funny because I think I ended up getting more comments on my video simply because I didn't mention the name of the super famous house. No one was mean or anything, just pointing out that I called Falling Water just a house. But this is not an exact replica by any means, and since I was building in Mount Komorebi, I wanted it to match the surroundings. I use the terrain tool quite a lot, which is good because I always need the practice. And this is the first time I put a waterfall in my build, and I put 2 of them. But let's talk about the landscaping. You can find these waterfalls in Island Living's debug. They are animated, so when you go into live mode, they will be flowing. Quick side note, I still feel really weird saying live mode and not live mode. I've been saying live mode since I started playing in 2000, but I did get it confirmed that it is in fact live mode. But anyway, I can't remember if I edited this out of the speed build or not, but I ended up having to place the waterfalls in the basement and then lifting them up with the 9 key to avoid the gameplay issues. My sim wasn't able to walk past it because the waterfall was taking up a lot of tiles, even though it didn't look like it did. Anyway, this just avoids gameplay issues. I almost always do it with rocks because it's pretty much a guaranteed way that the Sims will be able to walk freely around the area. I believe there might be another waterfall somewhere in the debug menu, but I can't find it. So if you know if there is another waterfall somewhere, please comment below what pack it's in and where I can find it because I am desperate to find another one. I try to explore the debug menu as much as I can to find new items, especially since most of the debug catalog icons don't really display what the item is very well. Anyway, since I added the waterfalls, I knew I had to do some sort of stream or pond. I feel like ponds always elevate a build, and I try to include them as much as I can. But let me tell you how I use the terrain tool. Let me preface this with everyone has their own way of doing things, and none of those ways are wrong. They're just different. I'd be happy to try another method, but this one just seems to be the one that works for me. First, I raise a bit of land up or down, and then I use the flatten tool to create platforms. I also do this for ponds. I like the bottoms of my ponds to be flat, but that's just a personal preference. And pay attention to those lines. Every 5 or so lines, I find that that line is a good place to level off a piece of land at, because if you were to set down a staircase, it will be flush with the ground. If you use a staircase on a piece of land that you flattened with one of those skinnier lines, the staircase will create a little dent in the ground, and so it will just not look flush. Even if I don't plan on using stairs, I still like to stick with this rule just in case I end up changing my mind, and then I won't have to go back and fix a whole bunch of stuff. But you know what's funny though? I got the idea of leveling off sections from Animal Crossing. I was struggling with the terrain tool for a really long time, and I couldn't figure out what looked good or what would make it more realistic. And then I was creating my island on Animal Crossing and it just like clicked. But one thing I can't stand though is the way it looks naked. I wish the ground didn't change colors when you lift it up or down. I know it's supposed to look realistic, but it always is this like tan clay color that doesn't match with my build because I don't usually build with that particular clay color, and it just sticks out. So what I do is I cover it up with rocks, lots of rocks. There are a few rocks that I prefer to use, but for this build I decided to go with a different set of rocks that match the environment better. I believe they're ones that I found in the Snowy Scape debug, so I knew they would work. As for the shape of the house, I was definitely inspired by Falling Water like I mentioned earlier, but again, it's not supposed to be a replica, so I played around with the shape quite a bit, and this is what I came up with. This house is definitely more on the modern side, which I'm totally happy with. I haven't done enough modern homes. I'm trying to do more, but it's not going to be for a while because the new horse ranch expansion pack just came out, so I'll probably be building a few more ranches before I start building modern again. but maybe I could do like a modern farmhouse. That's kind of like the best of both worlds. You have a little bit of modern, a little bit of rustic, put them all together. I like doing mixed styles too. So one thing I really like about mixed styles is that there's less rules. I feel like sometimes when I do a particular style, it'd be like, you can't have that. Like I built a Tudor home not too long ago, and I also added some electronics in it because, you know, I've seen many Tudor homes that have electricity and all that great stuff. But I got a comment that was like, why does this Tudor house have like electricity? I don't want to put myself in a box, if that makes sense, when it comes to building. I don't want to be like, well, I'm building this style, so I can't do this. I don't really like there to have too many rules. I like houses that have a mix of style, and sometimes when I create the family, I like the people that live there to almost be opposites. So it reminds me of House Hunters whenever I watch that. The people are like, the wife wants this and the husband wants that, and they're like completely opposing ideas, and then the realtor has to find something that's a good compromise for both of them. So when I'm creating something, I just try to put like a little bit more imagination to it in the way that's like, what Sims would live here and how can I put their styles together? Sometimes I do try to stick to one style and be very traditional about it, but that's really hard for me because when I'm building, sometimes like an idea will pop up and I just want to do it because I'm not usually building with a reference photo in mind. So I just kind of like to go with the flow, and I build to have fun. I build to also upload to the gallery and people to play in it, but ultimately I want what I'm building to be enjoyable. Now, speaking of enjoyable, when I got the request for this build, I put it off for a while because I just was not ready to take on something like this. And I saw all the landscaping that would be involved, and I wanted to wait until I was in the mood to build something like that. Now, I'm not either in the mood to build or not in the mood to build. It's either I'm in the mood to build a beach house. I'm in the mood to build this. Like I'm almost always in the mood to build something, but sometimes it's just a tiny house. But then some days I just feel really inspired and I want to take on something really difficult. I have to use my head differently in all the different types. So if I'm building a comfort style, like let's say a suburban home in Newcrest, I can do that with my eyes closed. I can do that in my sleep. It just feels so natural. But this house, it took a lot of brain power. I had to think about it a lot. Once I got going though, I was like, okay, I feel comfortable, but it's starting projects. And that doesn't just go for building. That's like everything in life. And I'm sure everyone who's listening can actually relate to that. Like I'll start something on my schedule, be like, I'm going to start working out on Monday doing these things, and it's just so hard to get started. And so when it's a build that I know is going to take a lot of mental brain power, I put it off for a while, but I'm so glad I finally took this one on. Now let me tell you about this path right here. This is the way I make paths. Now your Sims can totally walk up this path, and the easiest way for me to do it is to create with the terrain tool, almost like steps. If you want to see this in another one of my videos, definitely check out my Strangerville modern home. I do the same exact thing, but what you do is you create like steps. And remember that thick line I was talking about? I usually like to level it off on the thick line, but you're going to smooth it out so it doesn't even matter. The funny thing is I did not plan for how I was going to get the Sims up into the house, so the path ended up being a really great solution. I tried a couple of different things, tried a couple of different staircases, but none of them really looked good or natural, and I would have had to change a lot of the landscaping around. I didn't want to have to change the shape of the house or any of the landscaping that I did since I've already spent so much time on it. So this is what I created, and I'm going to do my best to explain this, but the main part of the house starts on the second story. The first story is all the way over to the right of the build, looking straight at it, and that's the gym, and you do not enter from there. You actually have to enter that spot from the outside of the house, but we'll get to that later. I wanted to level it off to that secondary platform that I created, but the Sim wasn't able to walk up there, so I had to create a flattened area and then put a stairs there so the Sim could walk up the stairs to get to the house. So yay, we figured it out. So now I'm adding railing with half walls all around the house where Sims would walk around. Even though Sims can't fall off of platforms, I just like the way this looks because I feel like it's way more realistic. I personally wouldn't want to be on a high up platform that does not have some sort of railing. So, you know, this is what I made. And then this little entry area here, I think is really cute. It's a covered deck, and I used eco lifestyle fencing for the front part to create like a area that can get nice wind, but it still feels like a wall. I really like using those fences as a wall, if that makes sense. And then out here I'm using the rocks, and I use a lot of tool mod here. Tool mod is like the best building mod that I can think of. If you're interested in maybe getting it, but you're like nervous or it looks overwhelming, it looks really complicated, I highly suggest that you just try it. Trust me, I'm not a rocket scientist, and I figured it out, and I still learn new things every day, and it gets a lot easier. I just, not too recently, but I've been using Better Build By also, and that has greatly improved everything. Better Build By used with tool mod is like the perfect building combo for mods. So they work with each other, both made by Twisted Maxi. I have links to them in my description box, so check that out. And on my TikTok, I do have a couple of little tutorials if you're interested, but I know Twisted Maxi also has his own tutorials on how to use it, but trust me, it saves a lot of time. And with things like this, landscaping and moving objects, it is a lifesaver. And all these rocks are actually in the basement. So by using tool, it doesn't actually bring it to the first story. I don't want it on the first story. I don't want gameplay issues. I want it to stay in the basement so I can move it around while up on the second story, while keeping it still in the basement, if that makes sense. Now here I'm in the backyard, and I'm creating like this little walkway area, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with this. I just wanted to be like a little deck over the pond. I ended up turning that into a yoga space, so stay tuned for that. It'll be later in the video. And yeah, this one's probably one of my more longer YouTube videos, and I just figured no one wanted to watch my videos for this long, but I'm going to try to make a few more longer ones. It also is nice because I try to avoid making speed builds of these big builds that I do, because I figured no one would want to stick around and watch me build them. But they're some of my favorite builds I've ever made, so I do want to share them. And you know what? You're going to have to listen to me talk for 50 minutes. Or you can just turn it down, get some music on, and enjoy watching this if that's what you're into. And if you want to watch a shortened version of this, you can always go over to my TikTok, because I've been enjoying making the shortened version of these speed builds. Those videos actually take me like somewhere between 3 to 5 hours to edit, because there's usually a lot of footage to go through, but ultimately it is faster than a YouTube video. These do take me quite a while just because you have to go through everything and then doing the voiceover, but I really enjoy the voiceover part, so I don't want to compromise on that. So here we are again in the backyard. There isn't a lot of yard to speak of, even though this is a 50 by 50 lot, just because I do a ton of landscaping with it. But I did create outdoor areas for your Sims to hang out at, and I love the way these outdoor areas turned out, and I'm really excited to play this in my personal game. I don't like to play with money cheats though, so I don't know if my Sims will ever be able to afford it, but you know, I might just have to use a little money cheat to get my Sims to live here, because I do want to play in this house. For these little bushes, for the landscaping, all that, I used pretty much all Snowy Escape stuff. There's a few base game things as well, but I wanted it to blend into the world. I also added this spa, this hot springs to the back, and I love how the rocks matched perfectly. It just looked like it was a part of the environment, and it wasn't just like I plopped down a hot springs in the middle of the yard. That's one of the things I've been trying to do, is having everything that I do look intentional, have it look natural with the environment, especially when it comes to landscaping. And no, I'm not a master at landscaping. I have a lot of Sim friends who are just like the most amazing builders I have ever seen, and they inspire me every day to push myself. I don't think I'm the best builder out there, but I do think I am the best version of a builder that I've ever been, if that makes sense. Like, I'm the best that I've ever been at building, and I've been building since I was like 7 when The Sims 1 came out. And I probably will be doing this until the Sims stop making Sims or I stop breathing. Like, it's either or. And if the Sims stop making Sims, there are other games on the horizon that will have building, be involved, and hopefully similar gameplay as well. I feel like I'm really struggling with the voiceover today. I'm trying my best, but I keep tripping over my words. This happens sometimes. I just have one of those days where it's just not really an on day. That's okay. I'm still trying. I'm still putting myself out there. I've just had a long week. Not a bad week, just like one of those weeks that there was a lot going on. My little dog, Cokie, who I named my account after, so yes, Cokie Creative. Cokie had to get one of her teeth extracted on Monday, so last week, and she's completely healed now, but that was fun. I had to give her soft food and lots of love and kisses and keep her calm. She healed really well. She's almost 11, but she's like the most resilient dog ever. She's a stray and probably generations of being a stray, so she's like super tough. And we adopted her when she was about 1.5 or 2, and yeah, she's just my little muse, my inspiration. I love her so much. So that was a little stressful, but I mean, she's in great spirits. And my mom also yesterday texted me, and my stepdad had pulled out on going on a cruise with them, and she's like, hey, do you want to maybe join if we can? And like, I woke up to this text and was like, okay, and I was checking flight details, and she was trying to figure out if I could take up his spot on the cruise, and ended up not working out. And I know that's not like a big deal, and that's pretty cool. I'm glad that she offered that to me, but it was like, I started like packing everything in my bag, trying to do like a week's worth of stuff, and she's like, we fly out in a couple of hours, and that didn't end up working out. So my husband and I have been working a lot this week, and he decided to take a lot of yesterday off, and we went island hopping and did a little shopping, and just, we needed time off. We haven't really taken a day off together in maybe like 2 weeks, so it was really nice. It was after a stressful week of lots of work, coconut, and then my mom and her trip, which I'm really happy she's still able to go on and everything. But we were just able to kick back, relax, and not just that, but this is silly, but the horse ranch pack came out, and I did this really big ranch build, and that I put a lot of my mental energy into that, and I did it in like 2 days. I started building base game, waited until the pack came out, and then finished it, and was able to upload it and get a short video. I will be doing a full speed build of that ranch, but I was working, did that, and really proud of myself this week. Very proud of myself. But yeah, just needed yesterday, and I think that's why I feel like a word soup is coming out today. It is what it is, okay? Some days I'm just on, I'm quick, but today's not that day. I also have been having migraines on and off all week. Luckily, it hasn't been too hot here. I live in the Caribbean, which is really funny to think that I'm like, thank God I'm not in the States right now where it's super hot. Every place is really hot, even if it's in Canada is sweltering. But it's been pretty mild here. It's been between 82 to like 89 Fahrenheit, which is warm, right? It's still hot, but it's not like some places in the US that are over 100 right now. I couldn't. It's too much. And I love the heat. I am a summer girl, but my goodness, that is just too much. So let me get back to this landscaping. I did not edit out enough of this. I am so sorry that I am subjecting you to this, but I went and explored the world, and I wanted to find exactly the right plants to use. So I found this, I don't want to call it a bush, but a plant. I used some of those. I ended up putting stuff down, deleting it, replacing it. I just felt like nothing was looking good. And I think now looking back, I'm looking at it right now, it doesn't look bad or anything, but when you are in the moment and you're building something, I shouldn't even say building. When you're creating something, it could be art, it could be building, it could be your makeup, anything. And you're looking at it too much and you're like, it doesn't look good. I have to change it. But in reality, it looks totally fine. Every time I was looking at it, I'm like, this just doesn't look right. Looking at it now, I'm like, okay, yeah, it looks totally fine. But I was almost like panic building. I was too far into the build at this point to demolish everything. I mean, I liked it. It just wasn't right. So I added a lot of my favorite base game bushes, snowy escape plants as well. I mentioned what I used before, but I tried adding trees. It still was, I think it was because it was so big and I was trying to create like this whole waterfall that it just wasn't looking how I imagined it to. I don't know how to explain it. I am proud of this build though, so I'm not saying, oh my gosh, this looks horrible. It took a while to get there, and whenever I do something new, like I've never built something like this before, I end up doubting myself a lot until the very end. It's a lot of like trust the process kind of situation. And I guess if I could give any word advice for people who are new to building or whatever, sometimes your builds look really bad when you first start, but just keep it. And I don't always, like, depending how far I get into it, let's say I'm 30 minutes into a build and I hate it, I will still save it to my library, whether it's just the shell or whatever. But I sometimes go back to those builds, like I search through my library and go, I do kind of like the way this looked. I am in a different place today, a different mindset. Maybe I can do a different direction and fix this build. But I don't really want the 30 minutes or however long to go to waste. So I tend to save everything I build. I don't just demolish it. I mean, I have demolished builds before, but it's only like when I'm 10 minutes in and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to save this. So out of curiosity, how do you all feel about landscaping? Do you enjoy it? Do you dislike it? Is it something you're working on? Just let me know, because it's something that I have been trying to focus on in the past like couple of years actually, and I definitely have significantly improved with all this practice, but I still have a ways to go. But otherwise, I'm really happy with what I've been able to create lately. I definitely noticed that I have a style, and I tend to use that same style throughout most of my builds, and I'm trying to switch it up a little bit. I'm trying to like not do the same thing with every single one of my ponds, and I'm definitely guilty of that. But anyway, another reason why I asked that question is because I noticed a huge difference between exterior speed builds and interior speed builds. So on Instagram and TikTok, I like to split it into two parts just because it's hard to fit it all into one video, especially for Instagram, because a minute and a half is the longest I can make. So I try to fit as much into one. So I found that it is easier for me to make them in two parts. I try to do it one part if I can, but anyway, besides the point, I've noticed that my exterior speed builds will get like 4 times or more the amount of views as the interiors. So I'm trying to make it a little bit more interesting when I do have to split it into two. Like this build was a little bit too big, for example, so I did have to do it in 2 parts, but I think I'm going to try to lean into, when I do interior speed builds, is the floor plan, and that's something that I don't usually show or talk about enough, and it's something that I do try to put a lot of thought into, like the flow of the house and how it is all laid out. Like this part, for example, I wanted to have a ladder going up to that platform right there, so I hid a ladder in one of the pillars so it looked a little bit more natural. I don't like to have like stairs and ladders look out of place, because I try to think of what it would look like in real life, and usually there isn't just like a ladder going up to a rooftop deck in houses. Maybe there is, but I want it to look a little bit more intentional when I do that. So now we're here on the rooftop deck that is over the entryway, and I love how this little area turned out. I did have to edit out a lot of this because I played around. I didn't really have a vision in mind. I just kind of was like putting objects together. So let me explain. The marble is from Dine, and then those are base game shelving that I sized up one. That shelving goes against the wall, so it is a little bit annoying to move up and down, but it's totally fine. And then I use cabinets to place those chairs, and I sized them down with tool mod so you can't see it. And what was kind of annoying is that I wanted to move the whole thing back, and I had to like hover my mouse over to find the cabinet because I needed the chair to stay with the cabinet. Okay, so now we're over here, and I made a little seating area with these Dream Home Decorator sectional chairs, and these are probably one of my favorite things in the game. I cannot wait until maybe other packs have the same concept. Maybe it's something they just want to keep for that game pack, but I really hope that more packs will come out with different sectionals, because I just love how I can shape it to whatever space I'm decorating. It just makes everything so much easier. Okay, so now I'm decorating this marble countertop, just putting some stuff on top, and that light you see, that is from the new basement kit, and it's one of my favorite lights that they have in the game. I'm so glad that we got a new standing light because I'm always wanting more of those. I feel like sometimes they're just a little bit too traditional, or maybe they're like a little too modern, a little funky. I want some more basic ones like this because I feel like I can put this in a modern house. I can put this in a more rustic house. It just really fits. And now I'm working on this little outdoor area, just trying to give it as much detail as possible. There's a lot of options in the game that I forget about sometimes, like, oh, I can put a little trim on the ceiling and it just looks a little bit nicer, a little more cleaned up. Now I'm going to go to the rooftop deck, and I love making rooftop decks. I did not want to compromise the shape too much of this because I knew I could just put a set of stairs to get up there, but I wanted it to be, I don't know, I wanted to play around the platform tool, to be honest. So I put the hot tub in the roof and I sink it down, and then I realized I could still see it when it's flat, so I wanted to really hide the hot tub. And now I have to make some extra set of stairs to get up there, but I do like the way this ended up turning out. One thing I find really important when building is adding different activities in my builds, because as a player, I really enjoy that kind of stuff. So for this house, for example, I have the hot tub and I have the hot springs and a ping pong table, because I know that when I'm playing, I love having that kind of stuff right on my home property. It just makes it way more fun. And then you don't have to go with the loading screens all the time. Sometimes when I'm building something, I start out by scrolling through the activities menu and be like, what haven't I built with yet? I feel like those tend to go, like, not unnoticed, that's not the right word, but how many times have you used the candle making station in your build? Depending on who I'm talking to, they might say a lot or a little, but it's those kind of items that you have to be a little bit more intentional with, because it doesn't look normal to have a big robot working station in the middle of your living room. It's kind of like, oh, you need to make a back shed for it. So sometimes I'll scroll through that menu and ask myself, what haven't I used yet? And what can I include? Because I know as a player, someone who's downloading the build could really appreciate having something like that on their home lot. I spent about twice as much time on the exterior than the interior in this build, so I do spend a while. If you are interested in the interior, I would scroll ahead a little bit more, but I did include a lot of these outdoor living spaces. Since the outside is so beautiful, I figured the people living here would probably want to spend a lot of their time outside, and I did include big windows so they could have a nice view, but I just really wanted to have that indoor-outdoor living, so I made that little painting space, and then I created these little planter areas with the platforms. This is me just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with that space, but oh yay, the ping pong table I had mentioned earlier. I love this because it's just an item I don't get to use that often, and yeah, playing ping pong with over a deck, I'm sure you'll have a couple balls go over, but it would be really fun, and as someone who plays, it is like a really good party atmosphere what I created here, and not just like, oh, a big party house, but this would be a great place to entertain. I find it kind of hard to entertain sometimes because if you don't have all fun items, your Sims just don't have a good time. Anyway, so this is the yoga area. I love this spot. I initially wanted to make this like just a seating area, but I figured having a nice Zen yoga spot over the water would be a much better use of that space, because I don't know how often you just have your Sims go and sit in random areas, so I figured yoga would be a little bit more fun. Here I'm figuring out the layout of the house. So this was interesting. One thing that I do, and I don't know why I do it, I should really figure out the interior floor plan first, because once I finish the exterior, I don't really want to change it, especially if I really like the way it looks. I will sometimes readjust it, but I should probably do my floor plan first. Anyway, so we start out with the entry over here, and the funny thing is, you'll see this a little bit later, there's like two color schemes in this house. The entry and the kitchen are like pops of red, and then the rest of the house is this kind of softer purples and very dream home decorator. I don't know what happened. I built them on 2 separate days. Like I started the build or the interior one night and did the red pops, and then I just kind of changed my mind and I ended up really liking it. I don't know if it 100% fits with the same exact style of the exterior, but I don't disbelieve it either. I don't think it's like completely opposite. So I add more of these planters in the back as well, and I love this, the way it looks. There was just a lot of dead space and I didn't know what to do with it, and this was the perfect easy solution. And because it was so easy, I went around the whole build and started adding this in other little spots just to give it more pops of green, make it feel more cozy, less sterile. Since we have some time to waste, let me tell you, I got a good night's rest last night. I needed to take a break, so this is day 2 of the voiceover. I'm really glad I did that. Woke up nice and early, skimboarded with my husband a little bit, and now got a good start to my day, and I feel much more awake and alert to do the talking. I can do the editing when I have brain fog, but the voiceover is a different story. Anyone that's done voiceovers before, I'm sure they understand. And they have gotten easier with time, but I definitely have those days where I'm like, I don't even know what to say right now. This is a build. But what I can say about this is that this little area up here, I love how this turned out. So I used these spa day benches and then pillows from the debug menu of high school years. They come with the pack because of pillow fighting. And I play tested this, everything your Sims can sit here. And I love that they're just a plain swatch because there is a pillow that comes with the little campers kit and it's really cute. But all of the swatches are they're very loud and very kid-friendly, so they don't really look as good outside, and I just like how the white pillow looks really nice. And with this build, I definitely did not do any pack restrictions or anything like that. I really enjoy building without any limitations, but there's definitely something in the back of my mind that I think, it's just a bummer that not anyone can download this, or that less people will be able to because I included all of these packs. But at the same time, it's like, I create a ton of base game and a ton of limited pack builds that are really cool and some of my favorite builds out there, so I can't be too upset when I occasionally do a build that has a ton of packs. So another thing is you could download builds that you don't have all the packs of and just replace some of the items. The bones are still there and you can see what you would need to replace for the most part. I really like this little outdoor seating area. I like including these in The Sims. It's just a bummer that your Sims don't really just hang out in spaces. I wish there was more activities to do. I feel like gameplay can get a little bit stale sometimes, especially when you do have a really good high-paying job and you sort of are, let's say at the top. I want to do, skills really keep things interesting and finding those hidden worlds and stuff like that. And that's something that Sims 3 did really well. Unicorns are in The Sims 4 now, so pretty cool, but I absolutely love the way Sims 3 did it. And I have found 2 unicorns, I think, before in Sims 3, and it took me, as a player, hours, many, many days in the Sims time to be able to befriend the unicorn and adopt it, and then I bred it so I could have more unicorns. Anyway, they just make everything really easy in The Sims 4, which is good for, I guess, players who want an easier experience, but I just wish it was a bit harder sometimes. I like the struggle. The struggle makes me want to work hard and continue. And that's something that gameplay wise, Stardew Valley does pretty well. I don't know how many hours into my save game right now, but I'm coming up on year 9. And I know there are people out there that are on year, who knows? I don't know who has the longest running game, but I'm sure it's 30, 50 years. I don't know. But let's get back to this build. I'm inside. This is the entryway. And this computer area is sort of like the family computer area, even though there is another one upstairs. But I just figured this is probably the ones that maybe the kids do their homework at. Maybe the family does their scheduling. And it's right in the entry. It just had this huge open space. I didn't really know what to do with it. I added 2 closets, mostly because I wanted to take up a little bit of space, but the room was just also so open and rectangle. I just needed more angles. I wanted a little bit more, it just makes it look a little bit more cozy. And this is where I start with the red, like I was saying. And I do love the pops of red. It's definitely a different vibe than the rest of the house, but I mean, it's not too different, but I think it's because okay, let me backtrack. When I was building this, I had already done the exterior. I edited the exterior video, uploaded that to TikTok, and I was pretty exhausted. And that night I was like, let's see if I can get the interior done too. And I'm already I don't know how many hours I was working on this, but it was somewhere around like 12. Not the whole build itself, but just like with the editing and everything. Anyway, so I was like, maybe I can get it done tonight. And I was also watching TV while I was building this, and when you're just building, you're not in the mood. This is, that's what happens. But I think we're officially on the next day. What I was struggling with too was that these cabinets that I'm using are from Perfect Patio, I think it is. It's the one that comes with the grill. So they're more for outside, but I use them for the inside. I just wanted to use some cabinets that I haven't used, but they don't come with overhead cabinets. So I use these Dream Home Decorator ones and then base game shelving, open shelving, because I thought it kind of fit the way it looks. And then I use these cutting boards that sit up against the wall and use tool mod to make it look like they're leaning. That's one of my favorite things to do with these little items right here. I don't know why it looks so unnatural just flush against the wall, so that's why I tend to like to use tool mod. Plus I just like an excuse to use tool mod sometimes. It just is like a fun way to use an item just a little bit differently. So now we're in this bathroom, and I think I only show this bathroom. I think I cut the other ones out because for the most part, I use the same items. I use the same wall swatches, so you're going to get just the same things over and over again. I use some of my favorite bathroom items. That shower from Spa Day. Oh my God, I absolutely love it. That's like my favorite shower, especially for a modern house. And then I also use this Spa Day sink and a couple of Dream Home Decorator stuff. That robe, base game robe, another one of my favorite items. I probably use that in all my builds. I can't think of many builds that I wouldn't use that. Maybe a starter home because I don't have the just extra income to have clutter lying around. But anyway, we are going into the living room now, and it was just a little bit too open, so I wanted to create this archway here to break up the space a little bit more. What I really would have loved if I could have sunk that down. There was no down to go since I'm using pillar foundation. They don't allow you to go down from there. I could have made it go up, but what I'm trying to say is I just wanted to use a platform for the living room, but no matter what I did, it just looked a little bit weird. So now you see what I mean about the color scheme, and I got to finally use that end table from Growing Together, and I love it. It's so beautiful. It's such a specific style though, so you can't just use it in any old cottage or anything like that. But I use this base game. I think that's base game. Maybe that's Get Together. I can't remember that. Fireplace. I really like the fireplace in this space. And sometimes I like to make like really cool custom fireplaces, but not today. I was like, I'm just going to use stock. It just makes it a little bit easier. I did plenty with tulle on this build, especially with the exterior. That's what I figured though too, because the exterior is so much, and I know some people are going to have some gameplay lag with it since it's on a 50 by 50 and has 2 waterfalls. But I figured the inside, I want it to be clean. I want it to be easy to get around since there is a lot going on. You might experience a little bit of lag if you're playing. If you have a very powerful computer, you probably won't notice anything. I didn't have any lag issues, but everyone's computer is different. Also, some people have lots and lots of mods and lots of CC, and I don't build with any of my CC in because it's hard to find everything I want in the catalog if I do that. Anyway, I like the way this little area turned out for the kids' bedrooms. I've made it like a little hallway, and then I put a piano here in this grand area because what else do you put in a big old grand staircase area if not a big old piano to take up some space? I wanted to do something different because I've used every plant in the catalog like 50,000 times. So I used a vase and then put a little bamboo tree in it because I thought that looked kind of nice. And what I like about bamboo trees is that they're tall and long and they don't go out as much, so you're not going to have as much clipping through the walls or anything like that. So I noticed that the staircase was looking super duper boring and I wanted to do something else with it, so I put it on a higher platform, extended the wall out, and turned this into a little library nook. And I just thought that was nice. What else do you do with a big old wall that's open like that? And then I added a little stairs here just to make a little walkway, something a little bit different. I mean, I haven't made anything like that before, but it took up space, which is what I needed. I didn't want to put any like activities there because I was going to have gameplay issues most likely, and I cut this out of the video, but I tried to put some green area there, like some grass and some plants, but it just didn't look right. I tried. I really did. I tried to make it look like grassy and pretty and planty, but no, this ended up looking a lot better. I ended up putting a little seating area here so whoever is watching the piano person can just take a seat, enjoy the music. Again, a nice little spot for a party, so if you want to play piano, entertain your guests, this is a great little spot for that. Here I'm making a little shelf area, and I do sort of minimal clutter here, something I thought that would fit well with this house. What I always go for is books, plants, and candles. Those are like the basics of what to put on shelves if you can't think of anything. I would like more clutter items that aren't just plants, though. I mean, as much as I love plants, but don't get me wrong, there's a good amount of stuff, but I wouldn't mind if there was just a kit just filled with like shelf items, something like that. Because there's so many times where I just need to fill in a spot and I want to put something like this, a end table, and then put some clutter on it. That end table I put on some like box games and stuff like families would have, because ultimately this is a family house. I still want it to be like modern, but nothing too modern, if that makes sense. I'm moving on to the kids' room, so you'll see what I do here. I end up pulling all the items that I wanted for these rooms out of the catalog. First, I'm painting the rooms, and this is what I tend to do first with kids' rooms, kind of figure out the colors, and I try to do something a little bit more gender neutral, even though it doesn't matter what color you have or anything like that. The journey my childhood bedroom went on was, it first started out with pink with gray sponge paints and a Barbie wallpaper border and around the middle, and then the top had a ballerina wallpaper border, and then I painted it when I got a little bit older to make it look like it was an outside setting, so it had like clouds and little grass trim along the edge. It had like a white picket fence and ladybugs and other bugs, and I just thought that one was really cool. And my mom and I did a lot of the hand painting of it, and we did some stickers as well, and yeah, we went pretty hard with that that design. And then when I got into like later middle school, high school, I did alternating purple, green, and blue walls with fuzzy dots, like that synthetic fur fabric. We cut circles and then velcroed it onto my walls, and that was like my high school bedroom. Anyway, so here is the kids' bedrooms, like I said, and now I have all of the items that I wanted to use in those bedrooms out, and I just wanted to rearrange those rooms. Sometimes I do that too because it saves a lot of time just pulling it out. It also, maybe it doesn't save time, but it does save like mental energy. Just seeing all the items in front of you makes everything feel a little bit more possible. So that's why I like to pull it out and get an idea of what I want it to look like. I tend to do color themes pretty hard. Like, I don't do too many builds that don't have some sort of color scheme. It makes things easier, but it just is like aesthetically pleasing for me. I just really like a strong color scheme, and it can have like a good mix of colors, and I do love pops of colors also. But don't get me wrong, I do love doing all white, and well, that's still a color scheme, I guess, too. But yeah, I just like keeping with a good strong color scheme. So this is a yellow room, and there's a lot of yellow orange toys. That wallpaper is from Dream Home Decorator with the triangles, and I found these base game solid colors that matched pretty well. So for the green room, we have a little science table in there. I like to make sure I have plenty of kids' activities, and there's at least like one of everything. So the yellow room has a drawing table, so either of the kids could use that, and either of the kids could use the science table. So now we're finishing up the green room, and there's not much left. The upstairs is not very big, so that's pretty exciting. I love when I'm able to finish a whole entire floor. That's such a good feeling when you're building. I'm sure anyone can relate to that, finishing up big projects. So yay, now we're upstairs. And this is the other office nook that I was talking about. This one's a little bit more serious, a little bit more upscale. Maybe the parents have this spot for them. I don't know, use your imagination, do what you want, but I did give it a little seating area too, so I'll add that in just a moment. But I wanted this to look like maybe somewhere where they could have meetings. I don't really know, it's not very private or anything like that, but they have some chairs there, so That way they can meet with people if they want. I know that's more of a symbolic thing. Also, I'm not really sure why the lighting's like that. I think it has something to do with the walls and the platforms upstairs, but in gameplay, hopefully that won't be annoying or anything. And if you don't even notice the shadows, then yay! But I put a karaoke machine upstairs because I thought that would be fun. And I almost used the big one, but I figured it actually make more sense if I had the small karaoke table and then a big TV behind so they can either watch TV or sing. And it looks a little bit more natural, like the TV's a part of the karaoke machine, but it's not at all. So I did the same thing for the TV upstairs than I did downstairs with those eco lifestyle wall pieces with the eco lifestyle wood and, you know, a little design there. I also do something like that, I think, in the parents' bedroom too. So I tried to have that as like a motif around the build. That right there, I was trying to change the swatch of the rug in the entryway because I realized how different the rest of the house looks from the first two rooms. And it bothered me just a little bit, but I like them all. I like how the entry turned out, I liked how this turned out. So I figured maybe they just also changed their mind in the middle of decorating their house. So this little area too, I figured is a good spot for having extra guests. And like I said, I was kind of keeping parties, entertaining in mind. Maybe these people have like a meetup at their house where they cook for their friends. This is nice and open, and I've been doing a lot of those open staircases lately because it's been saving a lot of time with not having to decorate as much in the upstairs. So hallways are not my favorite places to decorate. I just feel like all you can do is put end tables and clutter, and it's all just kind of open, useless space. So we're in the parents' bedroom, and I use this bed as inspiration for the colors in this room. So it's kind of like this peachy tan colors, so I found wall colors that kind of match that. I also threw in a lot of white in there too. I just like the bedrooms to be different from the rest of the house because it shows that Sims personality. Parents' bedrooms, I don't mind matching with the rest of the house a little bit more than the kids, but I just feel like it's fun to give the rooms a little bit of personality in them opposed to the rest of the house. This is where they can really be themselves and express themselves. I put a little seating area in the bedroom along with some wall art, but there's not too much to do in these bedrooms. What I do like about the parents' room though is it has a balcony that has a telescope. Before we finish up this build, let me tell you a little bit about the lore that I came up while building this and editing, and eventually I probably will play this out, but this house belongs to a very successful athletic rock climber, and they live here, and their kids also very much enjoy rock climbing and snowboarding. So I didn't allude to that too much, but I have a whole entire rock climbing gym in the basement. So anyone that has the money for that probably either is successful in some way and just likes rock climbing as a hobby, but I thought it would be more fun if they were a professional rock climber, even though it's not the most lucrative career, but it is in The Sims in this case. So this is the basement. I also include a little gym in here as well, so they can do a little bit of training. I had the rocks come into the wall a little bit intentionally. I don't know if that is obvious or not, but it's supposed to be intentional, kind of showing off that, ooh, rock climbing in rocks, how appropriate. But this is in Mount Kamarobi too, where they have a lot of really great rock climbing. So it just made sense. And I'm also using 3 height walls, so I had to do a little something with the walls to make them not look so bare. And it was so funny because I was ready to play test, upload this, and then I realized I completely forgot about this entire room. It's on the first story, which you aren't really on. I called it the basement. It feels like the basement to me. But anyway, I was ready to play test and then realized I left this completely empty. It did not take me long, luckily, because it isn't a lot. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching today. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, leave me a thumbs up or a comment and let me know what you think. Also, think about subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate that. But if you want to download this build, it is called Waterfall Hill Home in the Gallery, and my ID is Koki Creative.